Anita and Simon for some more of our ramblings. And today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the impact of nature and why nature's important to us. And you were saying last time, Simon, that you feel that your career might evolve,
yes.
we say, in the coming years.
Yeah.
Because of some of the work that we've been doing, but also your awareness of the impact of nature.
Yeah. So there are several things happening within education at the moment, which potentially means that schools, particularly senior schools, because obviously in primary schools, they have forest schools. Every primary school has a forest school. So they're all kind of getting involved with nature, they're out planting trees, they're identifying bits of plants, all that sort of stuff. Whereas they get to senior school and it's lost. It's too, obviously, studying for GCSEs and so hopefully, potentially, there will be a GCSE within natural history and sustainability. Now, in with that, I feel that there is a huge potential to address a problem that's happening in society at the moment with mental health issues within school kids. The figures are outstanding. Since COVID, truancy figures have gone up by 300% in some areas.
Yeah.
Which is just meant, and
that,
a lot
that
of that
includes school refusal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, because the young people can't cope with that environment.
So it's something over the last kind of 6 months I've definitely got a lot more passionate about, to be honest. But a lot of this is because after lockdown, everybody was locked in the house for 2 years. The anxieties of being with people again and having to conform to a structure, all that is completely just needs, I personally think, a bit of rethinking. And I think this opportunity is on us now to be able to do it. And you know yourself, you've read some of the research papers on how being out in nature can reduce stress, reduce anxiety. Was it one you were about basically looking up? Relieve kind of tensions and stuff.
Yeah. If you look at people who are depressed,
they always lock down.
Yes. Yeah. So if you change your body stance and you start to look up, it helps it's almost as though you're giving your body the message that to be more positive.
Yeah.
But also you start to notice things.
Yeah.
You know, you start to notice the things around you, and it's almost that this you might have heard the saying, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But if you walk,
I do that.
But if you watch somebody who is feeling good about themselves, who's confident and so on, they have a different stance to somebody who is depressed and anxious.
Yeah.
And so the fake it till you make it bit is that walk as though you do feel good.
Yeah.
And you will actually start to feel good.
Yes. 100% with that one. And just the relaxing nature of being out in nature.
Oh, honestly, it's just. I used to go to an exercise class that was outside, and I really miss it because one of the things that we used to do is to do kind of sit-ups or crunches or whatever, and I would lie on the grass looking up at the clouds.
Yeah.
And it just takes you to another place. Never mind the exercise. It just takes you to another place.
On about clouds, we were sat in the back garden with the kids the other day, making shapes out of clouds. Yeah. But again, you're looking up.
Yeah.
And, my youngest she's 6 years old. She was having a whale of a time, making silly shapes out of clouds and stuff.
But it helps with all kinds of things, creativity,
imagination, creativity, all that kind of jazz. Woodland skills.
Yeah.
There's another one. Obviously, when you can see, obviously around us, all this kind of frame for the chapel area at Cheshire Wood and Weddings is all made from the woods around us. But it's the skills of knowing which trees you can chop down, which trees you can't chop down, which bits you can cut, which bits you can't, how to fasten it all together, all that, the skills that are being lost. And skills like that can help these children potentially that don't want to learn in a classroom or can't learn in a classroom. That's another aspect as well. They're learning practical skills, they can be learning communication skills, they can be learning team working skills. The list just goes on and on and on. The skills you can learn in an outdoor environment. I do think that nature has so much more to offer than what's being used at the moment. And that doesn't even get onto the issues of climate change or sustainability or anything like that. That's just purely the behavioural aspects of what could be achieved for schools.
Now, when I was little, as the boys say, when dinosaurs were around, when I was little, we used to do nature studies at school.
Yeah.
And we used to, my parents, I was very lucky because I was brought up in Derbyshire, in a village in Derbyshire, in the Peak District. And every night we would walk our dogs. We had 3 dogs and we would walk them. And the dogs are timing perfectly out here to let us know that there are dogs around. We would walk through the woodlands. The River Derwent was at the bottom of our garden, which sounds very grand, but it wasn't. It was the end of our garden, then a little road, and then the River Derwent, and it was just perfect. So we'd walk over the bridge and walk through a field into the woodlands and walk our dogs, and we saw badgers. Because we had to stop one of our dogs Scout chasing a badger. But when we went through the woods, my mum and dad would point out, that's an oak, that's a beech, that's a rowan, that's I don't know, whatever the different trees were. And we would look at different times of the year at what was going on. So obviously in spring there'd be forget-me-nots and celandines and wood anemones and bluebells, and then later on in the season there'd be different plants and so on, and it was just absolutely fascinating. But that wasn't like
most of that's lost nowadays.
But that wasn't a lesson for me or anything. That's just what we did. And I've noticed now when we come into the woods with the young people, it's almost like pulling the plug out of them, isn't it? Because they immediately calm. And we look up and we look at the trees and we look at the different stages that we're at, because particularly over the last few weeks it's been amazing, hasn't it?
The last 3 weeks really.
And the colours, the fresh leaves that are coming through are a different colour to just a couple of weeks on. They're much sort of more vibrant green, and you just pick it up mentally, and it just makes you feel so good. But you were talking earlier on about when you'd heard the woodpeckers and you put your hand on the
tree, so I could feel it. If anybody had walked past me at the time, they'd have thought I was weird. Again, during lockdown, I'm quite lucky. We've got a small wooded area that's just behind the back of my house, and we've been living there up to that point, we've been there for 4 years. I'd never heard a woodpecker.
Wow.
The world went silent, and the things that we heard were just great. Like, we could sit in our garden listening to the woodpeckers. There was a tawny owl that turned up, there was a little owl that turned up. They were probably already there, but you just can't hear them. I even had a fox wander into my back garden as well, which was a bit disconcerting because I've got birds myself. But anyway, so I'm stood in this little wooded area with my hand on a tree, because I could hear it, but I couldn't see it, but then I could feel it. and that's a whole different sensation altogether.
Yeah. That's actually, you were actually involving yourself in mindfulness, because it's that hearing, seeing, touching.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can smell the woodlands as well.
Yeah.
But that sensation, and you said you felt so calm.
Yeah, and that sensation and that connectiveness with nature is what a lot of people are missing.
Yeah. Definitely. There's, do you know when we were walking through the woods one day with some of the boys that we work with and a member of staff, and we were sort of feeling the trees.
Yes.
No.
Tree hugging.
Yeah.
Literally.
We were literally tree hugging, but I had my hands on the tree, and again this time of year, that tree is not, you know, it's a living creature, and it's got sap rising in it, and it's got stuff going on.
There's movement.
Yeah, and you can actually
feel it.
Yeah, if you actually take the time to stop and just feel it and think about what is going on in that tree with the movement of water and, you know, the sap rising to feed the leaves, you can actually feel it. And afterwards, as I came away, it's like almost your hands have got this like buzzing feeling to them. It was just so wonderful.
Yeah, it's just completely sensory, kind of almost overload.
Yeah.
Sight, smell, touch.
Yeah, but if we do it at a slow pace, you know, if we slow down, like you say, in lockdown, I think for so many of us have slowed down, and I think we're pacing up again, or we have paced up again, and I think, to be honest, my own feelings are that it's too fast, and I'm seeing a lot of, you know, clients, mental health clients and so on, that slowing down that happened in lockdown that was forced upon us is now speeding up again.
Yeah.
And it's getting the balance.
Yeah, for a lot of people it's too fast as well.
Yeah.
So yesterday, I was at an event yesterday, and out the blue, somebody came over to our stand who I have not seen for 12 years-ish, something like that. And it was lad suffers from autism, and his mum
doesn't suffer from autism.
Sorry, he has autism. That's a wrong way. Yeah, sorry. He has autism, and he worked with us for a while at a zoo we worked at, and he was brilliant. His mum would drop him off in the morning. He'd come in with us. He's one of the hardest working people I've ever worked with, to the point where we used to have to tell him to stop, to go and get a drink, because otherwise he would have just passed out. But he came over, and then his mum messaged me afterwards to say thank you. I hadn't really done anything. I just said hello to him and shook his hand and nice to see you. But he'd not interacted with anybody properly and stayed well in his shell since COVID.
Wow.
Because it's all quite overwhelming for him.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So yeah, he was out, and it was a busy event, but obviously as soon as I saw him, for me it was like, bring him over, shook his hand, talked about some stuff that we'd done when he was working with us, and then his mum messaged me afterwards to say thank you, sort of thing.
Yeah, but very often I think in the work that we do, it's that because you tend to be focused more on animals and nature, when we're with people that have anxieties, mental health conditions, autism, ADHD, Tourette's, whatever, we're very much focused on nature, animals.
Yeah.
It's not about them. We're not going to ask them questions about them.
No.
But they soon start to feel that they can talk about all sorts of things, mainly because we do talk about all sorts of things.
Really random stuff.
Yeah, and I think being amongst nature and there's something real about nature as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And being amongst trees and nature and the reality of life that's going on there, but is so stunningly beautiful when you stop and take a look at it, that I think it allows us to engage better with one another.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, you know, for that young man, he probably associates you with a positive experience because you've worked together with animals and things that you both enjoy.
But,
and so
he messaged me himself as well
nice.
afterwards. And one of the things we've been talking about, and the place that one of my colleagues at the time had taken him to when we were working together, he messaged me to say nice to see you sort of thing, but also where was the place, because he couldn't remember from 12. I can hardly remember 2 minutes ago, let alone 12 years ago. But he asked where it was, and because he wanted to go back. So that's another step for him as well. Excuse me. But yeah, there was an incident a couple of weeks back. I was working within a school, and it was a session for students with extra educational needs. It was a reward for some students that had kind of behavioural issues. If they behaved themselves, they could get a reward. We ended up with a lot more students in than what was originally planned. But there was two that really stuck in my head, because the teachers commented afterwards about how well everybody was behaved. Nobody was stepped out of line. Everybody did what they were asked. Everybody did what they were told. Now I get this, and you'll probably see this as well.
Yeah.
We have it all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody ever plays up for us.
No.
As they do for teachers or anything else. I think one of the reasons is because we're new. They don't know who we are, so they're not that comfortable with us. So potentially they'll behave themselves for a little bit longer. But also as well, we give them something to kind of interact with, rather than just being sat in a classroom and being bored. They've been given the opportunity to engage in something, rather than not be engaged in it in any way, shape or form. So the two that stick into mind out of that session, there was a lad that came in, and his behaviour had been very challenging, because basically he was always getting into fights, physical fights, and he was a big lad as well. He was taller than me. He literally hid behind me because he was scared of what we brought in.
Right.
And then sat in the corner, didn't say words, and then it was butt snaked him for them basically. He then eventually kind of came over, and he stroked the snake, and he felt the snake, and then I sat and chatted with him for about a good 10 minutes, just the two of us. And his behaviour, even as he left, the teacher was like, "I've never seen him like that.
Yeah.
That's not him," sort of thing. And then there was a girl who was straight in away, no problem, there you go, I'll have the snake. She ended that session with, "That's what I want to do when I leave school."
Oh.
So for me, that's a win, complete win. Because according to the teacher, she'd never shown any interest in doing anything outside of school or even inside of school. So, yeah.
You know, I think as well, Simon, we never. I mean, I've worked with young people with challenging behaviours. I worked with a school for young people with social, emotional, and behavioural problems, and you think about, you know, when I read the backstories to them as a psychologist, I have to do this, and you sort of think, well, there's no wonder. There's absolutely no wonder. And for them, it's that, you know, if you read up on it and so on, you have to say, what other people might see as poor behaviours is them trying to cope with a world that they are finding really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And so their way of dealing a problem might be the only way that they know how to deal with it is to hit someone. Because it gets a positive result in that person goes away, or whatever that was impacting on them in whatever way. But I think our work with the birds and with other animals is we find out if a bird's behaviour is deemed negative or not what we're expecting, then we find out why. We look at the environment and everything like that, and then we change that to fit in with the bird, or it might be that we're not the right person to work with it, so we change that.
Yeah.
But in a school setting, they don't do that. And I've worked in some schools where they say that it's individualised plans for each child, and then it turns out not to be. But but when you're with these young people, you're showing an interest in them. We have to be calm around the animals, and I think you present that calm aura anyway.
Yeah.
We have to be calm, and we wouldn't think twice, would we, as saying we have to be calm for the animal,
Yeah.
because the safety of our animals is paramount in these situations.
Yeah.
So you were saying that that you need to be calm when there is simple, and they get it. The young people get it, and then we allow them time to ask us questions and to express. So we're interacting with them on the same level. We're not telling them, no, that's wrong and this is wrong, and you must do this and you must learn that.
Yeah.
We're interacting with them on a different level, and the animals allow us to do that.
Yeah,
But going back to what we were starting with, I think nature, we need to be more aware of it. It teaches you to, it teaches a level of respect and positive regard and all this kind of thing. And I think, hopefully, like you say, with this new GCSE that's potentially coming along, that rather than bringing in teachers who teach biology and that kind of thing, that they will bring in people like you who not only know their stuff, but actually have a passion for it and are doing it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can't get somebody engaged and passionate about something if you're not passionate and engaged with it yourself.
No.
It just won't work. But yeah, just the other thing, obviously, environmental stuff.
Yeah.
Climate change, all the rest of it. Now, in some areas of society, the problem you've got, they're only just scraping by themselves.
Yeah.
So how can we expect them to look after something else when they're only just managing to look after themselves? And that's not in a bad way, obviously, with raising prices and all the other kind of economical factors within an area. So by teaching kids at school a way that they can both look after themselves and look after the environment, how is that not a win-win situation?
Perfect. So we're going to call it a day for today, and we will be with you again soon with one of our other rambling topics.
I think we may go for a walk. We've been discussing about going for a walk and showing you around the woods and hopefully showing you a few things that we kind of stare at while we're filming this.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. Speak to you soon.
Take care, folks.
Bye.